All right, let's move on to number 3 then. 1 over 3w plus 2 over 3 equals negative 5 over 9. Once again, the goal is to isolate the variable. So by looking at this one, I have to get rid of the 1/3 and I have to get rid of the 2/3. The first thing I'm going to get rid of is the 2/3. Okay, so I'm going to subtract that one. Minus 2/3 minus 2/3 on both sides. So it's going to leave me with 1 over 3w equals, now this right here, this one you're going to have to do on a separate side, okay? Because the denominators are not different, so we're going to have to do a little bit of extra work on that one, okay? So I'm going to do this one off to the side over here. Negative 5 over 9 minus 2 over 3. They don't have same denominators. They have to have common denominators in order for me to do this operation. So what I'm going to do is find the LCD of 3 and 9. You should be able to see that one clearly. The least common denominator of 3 and 9 is 9. So leave the 9, but multiply this one times 3 over 3 to make it a 9. So we get negative 5 over 9 minus 6 over 9. And now I can do this operation. Negative 5 and negative 6 make negative 11. And the 9 will stay. We don't get rid of the 9. So negative 11 over 9 is what we get. Okay. Now don't lose sight of the goal. Okay. All we did was negative 5 over 9 minus 2 over 3 right now. Okay, we're not finished with the problem. So I got negative 11 over 9. Now what I'm going to do is get rid of the 1/3. Okay, and just like in the previous problem, in order to get rid of a fraction, you are going to multiply by the reciprocal. In this case, 3 over 1 is the reciprocal of 1 over 3. And the 3 cancels the 3, and the 1's cancel, so it's just w equals, to multiply these fractions, multiply straight across. So negative 33 over 9. Now that can be simplified, so always simplify your fractions as much as possible. Divide both by 3, you get negative 11 over 3. That is your final answer for W. Okay, now let's look at number 4. Solve 4x minus 3 equals 2 minus x. Okay, now remember what I said about these problems. If you have x's on both sides of the equal sign here, 4x and negative x, you have to choose which one do you like the least and get rid of it, okay? Or which one do you like the most, and leave that one there. In this case, I don't like negative x, so I'm going to get rid of that first. I'm going to add x to both sides. And so on the left side, I'm going to get 5x minus 3 equals 2. Much simpler equation now. All I have to do is isolate the x by kicking out the 3. I'm going to add 3 first. Add 3 to get 5. 5x equals 5 again. And then divide by 5. Divide by 5. And so I get x equals 1. And that is your final answer. Okay, so let's look at number 5. Negative 5 times the quantity x minus 1 plus 3x equals 11. I'm going to start this one by getting rid of the parentheses. To get rid of the parentheses, I'm going to distribute. So it's going to be negative 5 times x, negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 1, check that one, be careful, that one is going to be positive 5. Negative 5 times negative 1, positive 5. And then plus the 3x that's already there. And on the other side of the equation, I have an 11. Next, combine like terms on the left side only. If you notice on the left side, you have negative 5x and positive 3x. Don't make this mistake that I'm about to make right now, okay? A lot of people do this. I'm going to add 5x to cancel. So that means I'm going to add 5x right here. And so the 5x and the negative 5x will cancel. So I'm going to get 8x right here. Bring down the 5. All of this that I have just done is incorrect, okay? You cannot add 5x. What you just did is you added 5x here, and you added 5x here, and you did nothing on the right side. You just unbalanced the equation. You added a total of 10x on the left side and nothing on the right side. So this is way incorrect. What you need to do in this case is combine the negative 5x and the positive 3x together, like this. So we're going to combine negative 5x and positive 3x. Negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2x plus 5. And don't forget that you cannot combine the negative 2x and the positive 5x. They are not like terms. You can't mix these two. Equals 11 is on the right side. Alright, and now I can just kick out the 5. Kick out the 5 by subtracting it in this case. So I'm going to get negative 2x equals 6. Divide by negative 2. And so x equals negative 3. And that's your final answer. Okay, now let's look at number 6 here. 1/2 times the quantity 4x minus 6 equals 3 times the quantity x plus 4. So I'm going to start once again like all the other ones that I've been doing. We're going to distribute so that we can eliminate the parentheses. Distribute there, and also on the right side of the equation I'm going to distribute over there. Okay, I'm going to do the right side first just because it seems easier to distribute 3. So 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 4 is 12, so plus 12. On the left side, 1/2 times 4x. Think of this as a fraction. Think of that as a fraction. So 1/2 times 4 over 1. 1 times 4 is 4. So 4x over 2 times 1. Right here, 2 times 1 is 2. So that one is 2. Minus, because it's positive 1/2 times negative 6 over 1. So minus, once again, 1 times 6 is 6, and 2 times 1 is 1. So 6 over 2. Sorry, 1 times 2 is 2. So 6 over 2. Equals 3x plus 12. Please don't make the rookie mistake of combining the 3x and the 12 into 15x. Okay, a lot of people still make that mistake. You can't mix these two. One of them has x, one of them does not. They're not like terms. Okay, on the left side I can simplify. 4 over 2 is just 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2x. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So look how much simpler it just got. Okay, at this point I need to choose the x that I like the most. Remember, you have x's on both sides. You have 2x on the left side and 3x on the right side. Which one do you want to eliminate is what you got to figure out. Always try to eliminate the smaller one. Okay, so I'm going to eliminate the 2x by subtracting it. If you get an option between a positive and a negative one, and then eliminate the negative one, right? You want to keep the positives. In this case, they're both positive, so I just eliminate the smaller one. 2x minus 2x is negative 3. And on the right side, I have x plus 12. And finally, to isolate the x, all I have to do is just subtract 12, and I am finished. Make sure you follow this last step correctly. I have x equals negative 3 and negative 12. They're both negative, so add the numbers and keep the sign. Your final answer is x equals negative 15. Okay, here we go. Let's do number 7 now. Solve 5 minus 2 times the quantity x plus 3 equals negative 10 minus 6. So once again, I'm going to start by getting rid of the parentheses. So in order to get rid of the parentheses, I need to distribute. Now be careful on this one. This is not a 2. It's a negative 2. Okay, that negative must be included when you distribute. So negative 2 times x and negative 2 times 3. That's what you have to do in here. Okay, so 5 stays. Don't mess with it yet. But the negative 2 times x becomes negative 2x. And the negative 2 times positive 3 becomes negative 6. On the right side, there's nothing you can do. You can't combine any of that. You don't mix the negative 10 and the negative x. Okay. Now keep going. On the left side, I have to combine like terms. Notice that there's a positive 5 and the negative 6. They can get together. 5 minus 6 is negative 1. So what I have is negative 2x minus 1. Basically this one and this one became negative 1. On the right side, I still have the same thing. There's nothing I can do yet. Alright, now I make my decision. I have negative 2x and negative x, right? Here's x on this side, x on this side. You have to choose which one do you want to get rid of. Okay, which one do you like the least? In this case, your best option is to get rid of this one, negative 2x. Why do I say that one? Because when you get rid of that one, you have to add 2x. So when you add 2x over here on this side, you're going to get a positive, which is what you want, right? Now, if you do the opposite, and instead of adding 2x, you get rid of the negative x over here by adding x, notice that over here you're going to get a negative. Here it's going to go away, but here you're going to get negative x, which you don't want. You want positives as much as possible, okay? Now you can do this, but we'd rather just deal with positives. So what I'm going to do is add 2x, like I said, add 2x. This cancels, so it's negative 1 equals negative 10 plus, because negative x and plus 2x makes positive x. Okay, remember this is negative 1x, so negative 1 plus 2 is plus 1 plus x. Alright, and now we're almost done. Now basically just kick out the 10 and you are finished, plus 10. And there it is, x equals 9. That is your final answer. Alright, let's look at number 8, a conversion here. Convert 500 US dollars to euro, okay? And they gave me the conversion. Use 1 US dollar, which is equal to 0.89 euro, so 89 hundredths of a euro. So always when you're doing any types of conversion, start with what it is that you're trying to convert. 500 US dollars. And I'm going to write the actual unit next to it so I know what I'm talking about. Okay? And I'm trying to convert to euro. So what I'm going to do is a conversion factor, which is a ratio. Remember we talked about ratios. In this ratio, what you need to put is US dollars, which is what you're trying to get rid of, and euro, which is what you're trying to get. Okay? And remember, you have to decide which one goes where. In this case, since it's 500 US dollars over 1, then I want US dollars to be in the denominator, and I want euro to be in the numerator, because that way US dollars here in the numerator will cancel with US dollars here in the denominator, and what's going to be left over is euro, which is what I want. So just use the conversion factor that they have given us. 1 US dollar is equal to 0.89 euro. And then you multiply straight across, because these are fractions, these are ratios, just multiply straight across. US dollars cancels with US dollars, leaving you with your answer in euro. All I have to do now is just multiply those two numbers, okay? And go ahead and use a calculator for that one. So let me see, calculator says 500 times 0.89. So my calculator says 445 euro. 500 US dollars is exactly the same as 445 euro based on this conversion factor that they have given us. That's your final answer. Okay, here we go, number 9. There's 3 parts to this one, so let's do all 3 of them. I think after you see these examples, you should be able to get the hang of these, okay? It says, write an expression to model the situations. The price of a shirt, called S, plus 9% sales tax, okay? The price of a shirt, which is S, plus 9% sales tax. Here's what you have to do, okay? First, every time you're adding the price, adding to the price of something based on percentages, you should always start with 100. Let me change that to black. You should always start with 100%. Always. That's always your beginning. So either you're going to add to that, you're going to subtract to that, but it's always going to start with 100%. So this one, in this case, we're going to add. So plus 9%. That gives me 109%. Change that into a decimal. So remember, to change a percentage to a decimal, move the decimal over twice. Or you can think of it as divide by 100, right? That's percent, means per 100. Divide by 100. You move the decimal over once, so the decimal is here, and you're going to move it 1, 2 to right there. So what you get is 1.09. Okay? And you need to find the price of a shirt plus 9% sales tax. You found the correct decimal. All you got to do is multiply times the price of a shirt. The price of a shirt is S. So 1.09 S. That's it. That's your final result. Let's try number 2. Part B. Look, it's the same thing. Part B says the price of a dress with a 20% discount. So first of all, start with the 100%, just like I said in the last one. In this case, you're not adding 20%, you are subtracting 20% because it's a discount. So 100 minus 20 is 80, 80%. Change that to a decimal. Once again, move the decimal over twice. So the decimal is here, move it once, twice. 0.8 or 0.80. 0.8 is the simplest form. And we're talking about a D for address, so 0.8 D. That is the expression that represents a 20% discount on a dress. You get the hang of it? Now watch the last one. Same idea. The hourly wage with a 3% raise. We always do this with percentages. Start with the 100%. It says a 3% raise, so we need to add, not subtract like the last one. We need to add 3% to that. And we get 103%. 103% in decimal form. Once again, the decimal is here at the end. We move it over 2 times. So we get 1.03. And in this case, we're talking about the price of the hourly wage that somebody makes, W. So we're going to put 1.03 W. And that represents that is the expression that represents a hourly wage with a 3% raise. All right, number 10 basically applies what we just did in the last problem, okay? Sales tax is 9.25%. What would be the total cost if you purchase a pair of Adidas shoes for $75, okay? So I'm going to use the variable A to represent Adidas shoes, okay? So using what we just did before, we start with the 100%. Sales tax is an increase, right? So we need to add 9.25%, giving me 109.25%. Change that to a decimal because it's still in percentage, okay? So in this case, the decimal is there. We still need to move it over twice. So I get 1.0925. Now in this case, we're talking about Adidas shoes, so my final expression is 1.0925A for Adidas shoes. And now I can finally answer my question. The question is, what would be the price if the Adidas shoes are originally $75? That's A. Okay, that is A, represents the original price of the Adidas shoes. So if I plug that in, I get 1.0925 times $75. Okay, and we go ahead and do that on a calculator. And my calculator says that this will be $81.94. So $81.94. That's your final answer for this one. So once again, remember all these. Start with 100%, then add or subtract depending on what it says. If it says you're adding tax or you're adding a raise or something, then you add. If it says discount or something like that, then you subtract. So whatever you get, turn it into decimal form. You always multiply by the variable that you're talking about. So in this case, A for Adidas shoes. And then in this case, I had to plug in 75 for the Adidas shoes to get my final answer. All right, now let's look at number 11. Maggie is looking at a map with a scale of 1 inch to 20 miles. The actual distance between Disneyland and Legoland is 96 miles. What is the distance on the map? So they gave me a scale. Every time they gave you a scale, turn that into a ratio. 1 inch over 20 miles. Turn that into a ratio so that you can use it. Okay, 1 inch over 20 miles. Now you want to figure out what the actual distance is between Disneyland and Legoland. You know what the actual distance is between Legoland and Disneyland. It's 96 miles. So you want to know what's the distance in the map. Okay, so you're going to set up a proportion, right? A fraction equals a fraction. My first ratio is from the scale that they gave me. My second ratio is from the number that they gave me and try to figure out what the unknown is. Okay, so I'm going to put 96 miles right here. And I'm going to put X inches right there because I don't know what the distance will be in inches. Okay. Now to solve any proportion, you need to just cross multiply. Remember that, cross multiply to solve a proportion. So I'm going to do 20 times X first, and it doesn't matter if you do that first or if you want to do 1 inch times 96 miles, same thing. I'm going to do 20 times X, so 20X. And I'm going to do 1 times 96, which is 96. And now it's a simple equation to solve. I want to get rid of 20. That's multiplication, so the inverse is division, so divide by 20. That cancels, so x equals 96 divided by 20, according to my calculator, will be 4.8. Now this is in inches, 4.8 inches. Because they gave us 96 miles, so we want to convert it to inches, so 4.8 inches. Now let's make sure that this makes sense, okay? If 1 inch is 20 miles, then 96 miles should be a lot bigger than 1 inch, but not too big. So 4.8 sounds about reasonable, right? 20 plus 20 plus 20, that's 80, so more than 4 inches for sure. This is a perfect answer, okay? Okay, number 12. Mike is riding his bike at 15 miles per hour. What is his speed in feet per second? So another conversion. Here we go. I'm going to first start with what they're giving me. What information are they giving me? 15 miles per hour in 1 hour. 15 miles in 1 hour. Okay. I need to change that to feet per second. So I need to set up a conversion factor here. Get rid of miles first. Okay, so if I want to get rid of miles, I put miles in the denominator and I put feet in the numerator. And using the conversion that they gave me, it's 5280 feet for 1 mile. That will cancel the miles, right? That will cancel miles and leave me with feet. But I also need to get rid of hours because I need seconds is what they want me to do, okay? So I need to get rid of hours and convert to seconds. So I'm going to set up another conversion factor where hours is in the numerator and seconds is in the denominator. Now, do we know how many seconds are in an hour? It's not 60. 60 minutes in an hour. So if you know how many seconds are in an hour, then go for it. If you don't know, then you have to figure it out or do an extra conversion factor, okay? So I don't know how many seconds are in an hour, okay? Let's say I don't know. So I'm going to change it to minutes instead because I know minutes. I know how many minutes are in an hour, right? So there is going to be 60 minutes in 1 hour. That's not going to be enough though. If I do this problem, and let's go ahead and do it already to see what we get. Miles cancels miles, hour cancels hours. So what I get is 15 times 5280 and 1 times 60. So I'm going to get a fraction. 15 times 5280, let's put it in the calculator. And the calculator says 79,200. In the denominator, it's 1 times 60, so 60. But look at the units. I canceled miles. In the numerator, all I have is feet. In the denominator, all I have is minutes. So I have feet per minute. We don't want feet per minute, we want feet per second. So I'm going to keep going and convert again, because remember, we want seconds, not minutes. So feet is fine, but we need to get rid of minutes. Okay? So my next conversion will get rid of minutes. So it's going to go up here so it can cancel. And I want seconds. And I know that one. 1 minute is 60 seconds. So there you go. That'll give me my final answer because minutes cancels minutes. And my two final units will be feet and seconds. That's the one I want. Okay? So it's 79,200. 79,200 over 60 times 60. Calculator says 3,600. Do that division on the calculator and that will be the final answer. So let's see what it says. Calculator says 22. And now I know that my units are correct. It is feet per second. So I'm going to write feet per second. Done. That is your final answer. Okay, part B is related. It says John is riding at 25 feet per second. Who's riding faster? We know because John is 25 feet per second, as they told me right here. And what was the other guy's name? Mike. Mike is 22 feet per second. Okay, so you can obviously see who is faster. 25 feet per second is faster than 22 feet per second. So I'm going to say John John is writing faster. How you know 25 feet per second is greater than 22 feet per second. Done. Okay, now let's look at number 13. It says a 6-foot building casts a shadow that is 15 feet long. At the same time, a building casts a shadow that is 45 feet long. How tall is the building? Okay, the new building is what I'm assuming it says. So you're going to set up a proportion for this one. Okay, look how they gave me 3 different quantities. So first is a building and its shadow. Second is a separate building with a separate shadow. So I'm going to set up 2 ratios. First, the first building, 6-foot building with a 15-foot shadow. And I'm going to set it equal to the new building. We don't know how tall it is, so x. But we know its shadow is 45 feet. And there it is. Solve the proportion. To solve a proportion, you cross multiply. So I'm going to do 15 times x first. 15x. And 6 times 45 is going to be 270. And finally, divide by 15 to solve. And so x equals, punch it into the calculator, and you get 18, and don't forget your units are feet. Your final answer is 18 feet. Okay, 14. Annie is 3 years older than James. Use J to represent James' age. Okay, so J is James' age. James's age. So what is Annie's age is what it's asking us. Write an expression to represent Annie's age. So think, Annie is 3 years older than James. So if J is James, that means Annie is J plus 3. That's it for that one. B, if the sum of their ages is 18, okay, so keyword here, sum. The sum of their ages is 18. Write an equation to represent this situation. So you need to add their ages. James' age is J. Annie's age is J plus 3. You must include the J there again because it has to be part of the expression, right? Annie is whatever James is plus 3. James is just J. And it says the sum, so there you go, I added them. The sum is, which means equals, 18. There's the equation. Okay, and then part C says how old is Annie, so let's solve this equation. J plus J is 2J. Solve it first by kicking out the 3. So I'm going to continue over here. 2J equals 15. 18 minus 3. Divide by 2. And so J is 7.5. So he's 7.5 years old, I guess. That's possible. How old is Annie then? Well, if Annie is 3 years older than James, that must mean that she is 10.5, right? 7.5. So Annie is going to be 7.5 plus 3. So that means she is 10.5. 10.5 years old. Now together, 10.5 and 7.5, would they add up to 18? Yeah, they do. Okay, so they actually, the answers, even though they're decimals and we're talking about ages, their answers do make sense. Okay, let's do it again for 15. We're talking about Bob and Max. So once again, like before, I'm going to write their names. Black. Max and Bob. Is there only 2 names or is there any more? No, that's it, just 2 names. Max is M. We're going to call it M. Bob is 2 years younger than 3 times Max's age. So 3 times Max's age, that's 3M. But 2 years younger means take away 2. So Bob will be 3M minus 2. There's Bob's expression. Okay, that's part A. Write an expression to represent Bob's age. Part B, if the sum of their ages is 30, so once again, sum means plus, right? So sum means Max, which is m, plus Bob, which is 3m minus 2, equals 30. There's the equation. That's part B. Part C, how old is Bob and how old is Max is what it says. So I need to figure out how old each of them are. I need to solve this equation. M plus 3m is 4m. Because remember, this is not m, this is 1m, right? 1m plus 3m is 4m minus 2 equals 30. To solve this, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. 4m is 32. Divide by 4. And there it is, m equals 8. Who is that? That's Max. So Max is 8. Now Bob is 3m minus 2. Remember, Bob is 3 times Max's age minus 2. So what you need to do is plug in 8 right here to see what you get for Bob. So it's going to be Bob is 3 times 8 minus 2. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 minus 2 is 22. So Bob is 22. Now, does that make sense? The sum of their ages is supposed to be 30. Does that add up to 30? Yes, it does. So this is correct. Okay, another similar problem. Dan makes $5 more than the sum of Mike's wages or wage and 8. Use M to represent Mike's wage. So I have Dan and Mike. I'm going to start with Mike. Because they already gave me the variable, I'm supposed to use M for Mike. Dan, they didn't tell me the variable, but I can use the information here. Dan makes $5 more than the sum of Mike's wages and 8. So whatever Mike's ages is 8 and 8, the sum of Mike's ages and 8, but he makes $5 more than that. So actually Dan is M plus 8 plus 5, or M plus 5 plus 8, doesn't matter. But it's the sum of M plus 8 plus another 5 on top of that. There's Dan's wages. That's the answer to part A. Part B. Altogether, Dan and Mike earned $43. Write an equation to represent this situation. So together, Mike and Dan is 43. So I'm going to say Mike, which is M, plus Dan, which is M plus 8 plus 5, equals 43. Right? This M is Mike. All of this together is Dan, and together is 43. Solve it, combine like terms. M plus M is 2M, not M squared, 2M. 8 plus 5 is 13. Combine, we already combined like terms, so let's kick out the 13. Kick out the 13 by subtracting it. So I'm going to continue over here. That's going to be 2M on the left side, and equals 43 minus 13 is 30. Divide by 2, and there you go. M is 15. Who is that? That is Mike's wages. The question is, what is Dan's and what is Mike's? So I'm gonna try to figure out both. Mike is 15. Dan, according to this, is M plus 8 plus 5. So 15 plus 8 plus 5. Okay. So I got Mike. Dan is going to be 15 plus 8 plus 5, which gives me 28. And there's your final answer. Dan makes 28, Mike makes 15, together they make 43. Makes sense. Okay, 17. In one day, Joy traveled 5 times the difference of the number of miles Brian traveled and 2. Alright, that sounds a little complicated, so I'm going to start writing names. Joy and Brian are the two names that I see. It says use B for Brian. So there you go. They told you which one to use B for. Brian. Now Joy. That's the one that looks a little complicated. Let's see. Joy traveled 5 times the difference. That means minus. And times means multiply. So 5 times the difference of the number of miles Brian traveled and 2. Okay, so let's start with the difference of number of miles Brian traveled and 2. Difference means minus. And we're subtracting the number of miles Brian traveled and 2. So it's B minus 2. right? The number of miles Brian traveled in 2. The difference of the number of miles Brian traveled in 2, that's b minus 2. Joy traveled 5 times that, so I'm going to take that b minus 2 and multiply it times 5. 5 times the number of miles Brian traveled and 2. The difference between the number of miles Brian traveled and 2. There you go. That is the expression for Joy. Now next, part B, together they traveled 50 miles. So I need to add them together, right? So Joy, which is 5 times b minus 2, and Brian, which is b, together adds up to 50. Now to solve this one is going to be a little bit more work. We need to actually distribute and then combine like terms. So let's distribute the 5. That's going to be 5b minus 10 plus b equals 50. Now I need to combine the 5b and the plus b to make 6b minus 10 equals 50. Add 10 to both sides. I'm going to continue over here on this side. On the left side, the 10 and the negative 10 cancel, so 6b equals 60. Now I divide by 6, and so b equals 10. Who is that? That is Brian. So Brian drove 10 miles. Okay. How many miles did Joy travel? Take that 10, plug it in into 5b minus 2. So Joy is going to be 5 times 10 minus 2, which is 8. So 5 times 8, which is 40. And there is Joy's miles, 40 miles. Together they add up to 50, which is what the problem said, so that answer makes sense. Okay, 18. Chris buys 8 more Ninja Turtles than Star Wars action figures. The Ninja Turtles cost $7 each, and the Star Wars costs $9 each. Write an expression to model this situation using S for Star Wars. Okay, so they already told me that Star Wars is S, action figures, right? So Star Wars is S. So Ninja Turtles is what? We're not going to use N or T. We want to use S again. So by comparing them, I can figure out what Ninja Turtles is. Okay. So if Star Wars is S, it says Chris buys 8 more Ninja Turtles than Star Wars action figures. So Star Wars plus 8. Right? Star Wars is S, whatever that is. Ninja Turtles is whatever S is plus 8, because it's 8 more. Then it says the Ninja Turtles cost $7 each. The Star Wars cost $9 each. So I need to multiply the price times the number of items that I bought. So actually what I do is really simple. You multiply $7 per Ninja Turtle times the number of Ninja Turtles, which is not N, it's S plus 8. Remember what we said. And 9 is for Star Wars. That one is S. That's what we agreed that it was going to be. There it is. 7 times S plus 8 plus 9S. Make sure you know this is an S, although it looks like a 5. Okay, that's an S for Star Wars. There's nothing else to do here, okay? You can't solve this because it doesn't say what the total price was. The only thing, if you want to go a little bit further, is you can distribute. So 7S plus 56 plus 9S. And then combine the 7S and the 9S to make 16S plus 56. That's it. That's about as much as you can do, okay? So you can either leave it like this over here on top, or you can leave it like this. They're the same thing. Okay, 19. Lori is selling Girl Scout cookies for her troop. Her goal is to sell 500 boxes. So far she has sold 180 boxes. Write an equation to model this situation. How many more boxes does Lori have to sell? So what we need to find out in this one is how many more boxes Lori needs to sell. We'll call that X. Number of boxes needed still. So how can we use that X? Well, we don't know how many boxes she still needs to sell. but we know that she has already sold 180. So whatever she needs to sell plus 180 should equal the total of how many does she need to sell in total? 500. There's your equation. We solved that, which I'm sure a lot of you guys did in your head, but the point here is to come up with the correct equation, right? Subtract 180 and you can come up with the correct solution, which is going to be x equals 500 minus 180, right? We need to subtract 180 from both sides. 500 minus 180, which is going to give you 320. She needs 320 more boxes. Okay, here we go. Number 20. The perimeter of a rectangle is 28 feet long. The width is 4 feet less than the length. Find the length and the width of the rectangle. Alright, so that's a lot of information there. I'm going to draw a rectangle in order to solve this. I know that the perimeter, they tell me, is 28 feet. Also, I know that the width is 4 feet less than the length. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write the words length and width, just like I do for the other problems where I compare people's names and stuff. So length and width. The width is 4 feet less than the length. Okay, so remember how I told you guys which one is the variable? Figure out which one is the one that is mentioned first. The width is mentioned first. That's not your variable. L, or length, is your variable. The width is 4 feet less than the length. Less than means minus, but it's not 4 minus L. It's going to be L minus 4. Remember, every time you see less than, it is minus, but you have to flip them, okay? Because you want to start with the length and then 4 less than that, minus 4. All right, using that information, I can put that here in the picture. This is L minus 4. This is L. Now I know that the rectangle has equal sides, so this is also L, and this one over here is also L minus 4. So using what I know about perimeter and rectangles, I can add up all the sides. I'm going to add them all. L plus another L plus an L minus 4 plus an L minus 4. And the total is going to be equal to 28. Here's my equation. L plus another L plus L minus 4 plus another L minus 4 equals 28. Combine all the like terms. L plus L plus L plus L is 4L. Negative 4 and negative 4 make negative 8. They don't cancel. They're both negative, so add them. Equals 28. Add 8 to both sides. So I get 4L equals 36. Divide by 4. And you get your final answer, which I'm going to write over here. L equals 9. That's the length of the rectangle. So if the length is 9, it says the width is 4 feet less than that. Don't add 4, subtract 4, just like you see here. So if this is 9, 9 minus 4 is 5. So the width is 5. There's the length. And there's the width. Okay, 21. Tina is saving to buy a notebook computer. She has two options. The first option is to put $200 away initially and save $10 every month. The second option is to put $100 away initially and save $30 every month. After how many months would Tina save the same amount using either option? So same amount using either option. That means that I need to make an equation where option 1 is equal to option 2. We want the two options to be equal, to be the same. So I need to come up with an expression for option 1 and an expression for option 2. Now here's the hint. The first option, option 1, is to put 200 away and then save 10 per month. So option 1 is going to look like this. 200 initially plus 10 per month times m equals option 2, 100 away initially plus 30 per month. There's the equation that we need to solve. So the question is, how many months would it take? Let's solve it. In this case, once again, look, you have variables on both sides. So choose which one do you like best, keep that one. Or which one do you like least, get rid of that one. In this case, I dislike 10m, so I'm going to subtract it. Subtract it on this side as well. So here's what I get. Gonna erase some work. Actually, I'll just continue working here. This is gonna be 200 on the left side is equal to 100 plus 20m. And now I isolate the m by subtracting 100 from both sides, which leaves me with 100 on the left side and 20m on the right side. Solve by dividing by 20. And so m equals 100 divided by 25. M is the number of months, so that's 5 months. That's the answer to part A. Okay, part A, after how many months? 5 months. I'll put it right here. Part B says, how much would she save with either option? So how much would she be saving in option 1 or option 2? Now, since they're the same after 5 months, just plug it in into either option 1 or option 2. So plug it in here in this part of the equation, or plug it in on this one. Okay, either one should give you the same answer. I'm going to plug it on the left side. So right here I can use mental math. 10 times m, 10 times 5 is 50. 200 plus 50 is $250. So she would save $250. If you don't believe that, you can test the other one too. Okay, look, on this side, if I plug in 5, 30 times m, that's 150, plus 100, 250. Both of them would save her $250. Okay, 22. Solve for the indicated variable. D equals 1 over 3 RT. And we are solving for, make sure you pay attention to what it's asking for, R. We're solving for R. So, if I want to solve for R, I have D equals, I'm going to rewrite it over here, 1 over 3 RT. I want to isolate the R, so I need to get rid of the T and also need to get rid of the 1 over 3. First thing I'm going to get rid of is the 1 over 3 by multiplying by the reciprocal on both sides. 3 over 1. Why? Because 3 cancels 3, 1 cancels 1, so the fraction is gone, so I'm only left with RT. On the left side is D over 1, right? You can put a 1 under that, times 3 over 1. So it's 3D over 1, but I really don't need to write the denominator 1, right? Last step, I want to isolate the R. Remember, the goal is to isolate the R, so I need to get rid of T. So divide by T. And there you go. I'm going to write the answer here. 3D over T is equal to R. That's your final answer there. Okay, 23. Looks a little bit more complicated, but once again, we can solve this, okay? So I need to solve the indicated variable, solve for h in this case. I want the h to be isolated. Now, careful here. Do not distribute the h. If you do, you're just going to make a bigger mess, right? You're going to get hb sub 1 and hb sub 2. Okay, it's going to be a much bigger mess. Instead, since you only have one h, which is right there outside, leave it there. Let's try to get rid of the fraction here first, okay? So just like we did in the last one, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2 over 1. 2 over 1 on both sides. Now this is a over 1, so when I multiply, it's going to be 2a over 1, which is just 2a, equals, the 2 cancels the 2, the 1 cancels the 1, leaving you with just this, b sub 1 plus b sub 2 times h. Now once again, I need to isolate the h, right? The goal is to leave the h by itself, so I need to get rid of both of these. The good thing here is that they're in parentheses, so I can get rid of both of them together since they're basically attached to each other since they're in parentheses. So I'm going to divide by b sub 1 plus b sub 2, just as they are in parentheses, and it will cancel. So on the left side, I divide by b sub 1 plus b sub 2. And that's it. H is left on the right side. On the left side, you have 2a over b sub 1 plus b sub 2. That's your final answer. You really don't need those parentheses in the bottom since there's nothing to distribute. You can actually just get rid of them if you want to. Okay, so you could write it like that, or you can just write it like this. 2a over b sub 1 plus b sub 2 without the parentheses. Same thing. Okay, let's continue here with number 24. Solve for the indicated variable. So it's asking us in this equation, which should look familiar to you guys, to solve for x. So if I want to solve for x, that means I need to isolate the x. So what I need to worry about first is the two other variables that are near x. So here's x, and next to it is m, and over here is also b. I need to get rid of both of those to isolate the x. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of the b. So minus b on both sides. What that's going to do is going to cancel the b, leaving me with mx on the right side, and on the left side I can't combine y and b. So I'm going to write y minus b, like that. Now my second step and last step is to get rid of the m. Remember, I want x to be isolated. So since this is multiplication, m times x, the inverse would be to divide by m. So I divide by m here, and I divide by m over here. The m's cancel, and there's your final answer. Y minus b over m is equal to x. That's it. You could, of course, flip it around and write x equals y minus b all over m. It's the same thing. Okay, now let's look at 25. It's the same idea. In this one, we are solving for r. We want the r to be isolated. This one's a little bit simpler because if you notice, all we have here is a 2 pi and an r. And we need the r to be isolated, so we got to get rid of the 2 and the pi. We can do both at the same time. Since this is multiplication, we're going to do the inverse, which is division. So divide by 2 pi, both sides. That cancels, the 2 cancels, the pi cancels, leaving you with r equals c over 2 pi. And that's it. You're done right there. R is c over 2 pi. And of course, just like last time, you could rewrite it with the r on the left side, c over 2 pi. That's your final answer. Okay, 26 says write an inequality. Keyword here, inequality. This is not an equation. Inequalities are any of these expressions, comparisons that involve these symbols. Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and so on. Okay, so we need to use some of those. It says David and his 2 friends have $220 to spend at the fair. It cost them $5 each to get in, and together they spent $30 for lunch. How much can David and his 2 friends spend on ride tickets so each of them have an equal amount? Okay, so they each need to have an equal amount of ride tickets. So we're going to say X is amount spent on tickets per person, right? So since there's 3 of them, David and his 2 friends, the amount they spend on tickets is 3x, right? This is per person, and this is total for the 3 friends, David and his 2 friends. They have $220 to spend, but they have to pay for the entrance, which is $5 each. $5 for 3 people, that's $15. So they spend $15 for the entrance. Total. And together, all together, they spend $30 for lunch. So $30 for lunch altogether. We put all that information together, and we can put this stuff together. So what are they spending money on? They're spending money on the tickets, 3x. They're spending money on the entrance, which we already know is $15 total. It's not 15x, it's just 15. They're spending money on the lunch, $30 total. And they have only $220 to spend, which means that they don't want to spend exactly $220. They want to keep their limit as $220, okay? So my inequality symbol here is going to be one of these 4. So think, we want to spend 220 or less, right? That's how much they have. So the correct inequality symbol here will be this one, less than or equal to 220. There you go. That's your inequality that you need to solve. So let's solve it. We're going to combine like terms. The 15 and the 30 make 45. So 3x plus 45 is less than or equal to 220. I am going to continue over here. So I'm going to erase this over here. So subtract 45 from both sides is my next step. Subtract 45. When I subtract 45, the 45 and the 45 cancel, so it's 3x is less than or equal to 220 minus 45 is going to be 185. Wait, is that right? No, that's not right. 175. Let me erase that. 175. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. And we're done. 3 goes into 175. It's going to be 3 times 5, 15, and 25. It's going to be $58.33. We're talking about money, so we're going to go to two decimal places. There you go. Each of them can spend $58.33 on tickets so that they don't go over their $220 that they have to spend. Okay, 27 is just an inequality, so no word problem attached to it. We just have to solve for x on this one, or isolate the x. So here we go. We're going to follow the same steps we use when we solve equations. I'm going to put a line through there, add 6 to both sides. That 6 and the negative 6 cancel, so it's x over 2 equals 5. Now to get rid of that 2, I need to do the inverse operation here. The inverse of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. That 2 cancels the 2, leaving you with just x. And 5 times 2 is 10. And notice the mistake that I made. The very, very common mistake people make. I went and I switched the inequality symbol to an equal sign. It is not an equal sign, right? So it's going to be greater than or equal. Greater than or equal. If I wanted to graph this, it is not part of the problem here, but I find the number 10 on my number line. I put a closed dot on it, and I shade this direction because I'm saying that x is greater than 10, and the numbers that are greater than 10 are over here. So that is your final answer. It didn't ask me to graph. I went and ahead and graphed it just to show you guys what it's like. That's your final answer. Okay, number 28 is the same idea. I'm going to isolate the variable here. This is an inequality symbol that is a less than sign, so I got to make sure that I keep that all throughout the inequality. First, I'm going to distribute, and once again, notice that it's negative 3, not positive 3. So when you distribute, you got to watch out for that. Bring down the 5. Distribute the negative 3. That's going to make negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 1 will give you positive 3. Is less than 20. That's the inequality symbol we have. Combine like terms. On the left side, I have a 5 and a 3. Together, they make 8. So negative 3x plus 8 is less than 20. Don't combine the negative 3x and the 8. They're not like terms. I'm going to isolate the x by first subtracting 8. So negative 3x is less than 12. 20 minus 8 is 12. And then divide by negative 3 is my final step. And here's where you got to watch out. You are dividing by a negative. Dividing by a negative on both sides. When you do that, you got to make sure you reverse the inequality symbol. That's your final answer right there. Okay, number 29, same idea. We're going to first distribute. To get rid of those parentheses, we're going to isolate the x. So I know there's x's on both sides, but first I need to get rid of those parentheses. So I'm going to distribute the negative 2. Make sure you distribute the negative 2. So negative 2 times 3 is negative 6x. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Inequality is going in that direction. Now what you got to decide is, do I want to leave the x on the left side or on the right side? Okay, which one do I like best? Negative 6x or positive x? I like positive x, so leave that one. I'm going to add 6x in this case. Add 6x. This cancels, leaving you with negative 10 is greater than x plus 6x is 7x plus 4. Now to isolate the variable, I'm going to subtract 4 to get rid of it. That's going to leave me with 7x on this side, and on this side negative 14. And finally divide by 7. Now since I'm dividing by a positive number, there's no need to flip or reverse the inequality symbol. It's just going to stay as greater than. So negative 14 divided by 7 is negative 2. Negative 2 is greater than x, okay? Every time the x ends up on the right side, it is helpful to rewrite it with the x on the left side. You don't have to, but it's helpful so you could see it better, okay? So if you want to rewrite it with x on the left side, you got to be careful. It's not like an equation. You can't just flip them around, okay? If you do flip the variable and the number, you also have to reverse the inequality symbol. Okay? Both of these are the same thing. The first one says that negative 2 is a number that is bigger than x. The second one says that x is a number that is smaller than negative 2. Same idea. Okay, both of those are correct. Okay, now let's look at number 30. An elevator can hold a maximum of 800 pounds. If a luggage rack weighs 50 pounds and the average person weighs 150 pounds, how many people can safely fit in the elevator? Okay, so there's a luggage rack in this elevator, right? So there's a maximum is 800 pounds. That means that whatever we have has to be less than or equal to 800. Whatever the total weight we have has to be less than or equal to 800. Now the luggage rack by itself is 50 pounds, so 50 pounds already of weight. Plus, additionally to that, we have people, which each person weighs 150 pounds. So 150x, x represents the number of people, right? 150 per person. We can solve this by subtracting 50. So we have 150x is less than or equal to 750. Get the x. Divide by 150 here. Divide by 150 there. And my final solution is x is less than or equal to 75 divided by 15, which is basically 5. Which means that how many people can safely fit in an elevator? At most 5. Okay, so it has to be 5 or less. We're going to write at most 5 people. And that is our final answer. Okay, number 31. The maximum capacity in the gymnasium is 1,200 people. There are 180 students performing for the assembly. If each class has 30 students, how many classes can fit in the gym to watch the performance? Okay, so once again, it's telling me that there's a maximum capacity, which is 1,200. So whatever I have in the gymnasium has to be less than or equal to 1,200. We know that there's already 180 people in there. And we know that each class has 30 students. So if each class has 30 students, and x is the number of classes, we can write 30x. Okay, so 180 is the students that are already in there because of the performance. 30 per class, 30x, and the total has to be less than or equal to 1,200 because that is the maximum capacity of the gym. Alright, we can solve this now. We're going to first subtract 180. Subtract 180. That's going to leave me with 30x is less than or equal to 1,200 minus 180 is 1020. Finally, I'm going to divide by 30. Divide by 30 on both sides. And that's going to leave me with, I'm going to continue here, x is less than or equal to 1020 over 30. You can cancel the 0, so it's basically 102 divided by 3. That's going to be 334. And that is your final answer. So how many classes can fit in the gym to watch the performance? Less than 34. Okay, so at most 34. Once again, we're going to use the phrase at most. At most 34 classes. No more than that. That's our final answer. Okay, 32, solve the compound inequality, graph the solution. Remember how we learned how to do these? This is an and inequality. Remember how you could tell? It's not an or inequality because I don't see the word or, right? If you see the word or, then it's an or inequality. This is an and inequality. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to split it up into two inequalities connected by the word and, right? And remember what I said? The first one, just ignore the last part of the inequality, and that's your first part. 15 is less than or equal to negative 5x. And what you do is ignore the first part of the inequality, this part, and your last two pieces make up your second inequality. There. I split it up into two. I solve them both separately from each other. I don't have to mix them up. Okay? So I'm going to solve the first one by dividing by negative 5. The negative 5 cancels with the negative 5. So what I'm going to get is x on this side, negative 3 on this side. But notice that since I divided by a negative, I have to reverse the inequality symbol. For the second one, I am going to divide by negative 5 also. Divide by negative 5. So x is on this side. Once again, I divided by a negative. Right here, I'm dividing by negative 5. So I have to reverse the inequality symbol once again. Negative 20 divided by negative 5 is positive 4. Okay, so x is less than negative 3 and it's also greater than 4. Okay, this one actually makes no sense to me, but look what happens. It's saying that x is less than negative 3. So here's negative 3, less than or equal to negative 3. And x is smaller than that. So which numbers are smaller than negative 3? Well, negative 4 and negative 5. So that means that I should be shading this way. X is greater than or equal to 4 means that you start here, and x is greater than that. So which numbers are greater than 4? Well, 5, 6, and so on, which tells me that I should be shading this way. But that is an or inequality because it's being shaded in opposite directions. Okay, and what I'm supposed to have is an and inequality. You guys see that? That's supposed to be an and inequality. Okay, which tells me this one has no solution. If it's supposed to be an and inequality, then my graph should be an and inequality, not an or inequality. Okay, so this one has actually no solution because it makes no sense. There is no number that is smaller than negative 3, less than negative 3, but also bigger than positive 4. You can't think of a number that is true for both possibilities, right? Negative 4 or positive 5, they fit either one of the requirements, but they don't fit both. Okay, so no solution to this one. Okay, let's look at 33. It's an or inequality, so I'm just going to solve them both separately. The first one, I'm going to subtract 7. Minus 7 on this side, minus 7 on that one. That's going to be 2x is less than negative 10. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and x is less than negative 5. Done with that one. The other one, I'm going to add 1. I'm going to get 5x is greater than 15. And then I'm going to divide by 5. Divide by 5. That cancels, so x is greater than 3. The word in the middle is or. So I'm looking for numbers that are less than negative 5. So here's negative 5, and I want less than that. Whoops, that's supposed to be an open circle, right? Because of the inequality symbol here. I don't see an equal sign down here, so it's not closed, it's open. So open circle at 5 and shade this way. Numbers that are smaller than negative 5. For this one, open circle at 3 and shade this way. Numbers that are larger than positive 3. That one makes sense, right? So the solution is that. Any number that is less than negative 5 or greater than 3, and that is the graph of the solution. Alright, number 34. Solve each compound inequality and graph the solution. I'm going to split it up again just like I did before. So first, ignore this and write your first inequality. Negative 5 is less than or equal to 3x plus 1. And for the second inequality, I ignore this part over here and write 3x plus 1 is less than or equal to 13. I solve them both separately from each other. So for the first one, I'm going to subtract 1. That's going to be negative 6 is less than or equal to 3x. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. X is on this side. On this side is negative 2. And the inequality symbol does not switch because I divided by a positive number. And I write the word and in between. And we're going to do the other one. Subtract 1. 3x is less than or equal to 12. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. X is less than or equal to 4. Now let's try to make sure that this one makes sense. I'm looking for a number that is, in this case over here, greater than negative 2, because if negative 2 is less than x, that means that x is greater than or equal to negative 2. But I'm also looking for a number that is less than 4. If you can think of any, then this actually makes sense. There is a solution to this. And I can think of a few, right? For example, 0. 0 fits this description because it's greater than negative 2, or you can say negative 2 is less than 0. It's also less than 4. So if there's a solution, that means that there's actually a solution, so we can graph it. Let's graph it. My graph is going to look like this. Here's my number line. Here's negative 2. Here's positive 4. I have an closed circle on this one and a closed circle on that one as well. So they're both closed right there and right there. And since it makes sense, it's true, it's an and inequality, so it's shaded in between the 2 points. There you go. Any number that I shaded is a possibility here. Like for example, 3. 3, if you think about it, fits that description because it's less than 4, fits that description. It's also greater than negative 2, right? Or 2 or 1 or 0 or negative 1, any of those numbers would fit the description. Okay, so this is the correct solution here. All right, 35. It says write a compound inequality shown by the graph. Okay, when you start doing these where they give you the graph and you're supposed to come up with the compound inequality, the first thing you got to choose is it an and inequality or is it an or inequality? Okay, so look at the way that it's shaded. If it's shaded in between, then it's an and inequality. If it's shaded in opposite directions, then it's an or inequality. So for A, it's an or inequality. So I'm going to write the word or right away. I know it's an or inequality because it's shaded in opposite directions. And all you got to do is just figure out what each one of those pieces is saying. So the one on the left starts at negative 4, so I'm going to write negative 4. And I'm going to compare it to x. And the only thing I have to ask is it saying that x is less than negative 4, or is it saying that x is greater than negative 4? So notice how it's shaded to the left of negative 4? That means all the numbers that are smaller than negative 4, right? It's saying that x is less than negative 4. And then decide, am I supposed to put an equal sign down here or not? And in this case, you're not. Because it's not a solid closed circle, right? It's an open circle, so leave it like that. Now let's look at the right side. That one begins at 2. So once again, I'm going to write x and 2, because those are the two things I'm comparing. And if you look at the shading, you got to decide, is it saying that x is greater than 2, or is it saying that x is less than 2? Well, notice that it's shading all the numbers that are bigger than 2, right? So it's saying x is greater than 2. Now, should I put the equal sign or not? In this case, yes, because the circle, the dot here, is closed. So we need to put the equal sign right there. There it is. That's your final answer. X is less than negative 4, or x is greater than or equal to 2. That whole thing is your solution, including the word or. Okay, now let's look at B. Same idea. First thing you decide is it an and inequality or an or inequality? This is an and inequality. So I'm going to write the word and. Then I look at the very first one over here. It starts at 0. So I'm going to write x and 0, right? I'm comparing x to 0. Now, if you look at the way it's shaded, is it shaded to the left of 0 or to the right of 0? Meaning, is it less than 0 or greater than 0? Now since it's shaded to the right, which are all the numbers that are bigger than 0, it's greater than 0. Now is it open or closed? This is closed, so we're going to put the equal sign there. And now for the right side. This one begins at 6, so once again I'm going to write x compared to 6. And same question. Am I shading the numbers that are smaller than 6 or the numbers that are bigger than 6? Since I'm shading the numbers that are smaller than 6, I'm going to write less than. Now should I put the equal sign? Is it an open circle or a closed circle? This is an open circle, so I'm not going to write the equal sign down here. That's it. This is my solution. Now let's practice writing that in short form. Right? In short form I showed you guys, just put the numbers in order. Which one's smaller, 0 or 6? 0, right? X is between and 6 is the largest number. And then just always use less than signs. Make sure you include the equal sign if it's part of it. So in this case there's an equal sign here with the 0, so I must put an equal sign here with the 0, but not with the 6. No equal sign here, no equal sign there. There it is. Both of these mean the same thing. You gotta make sure you know how to go back and forth from one to the other. Okay, so both this one and that one are correct. They mean the same thing. Alright, finally, 36. Write a compound inequality to represent the following situation. Then graph the solution. It says the air conditioner in Mr. Cabrera's room should keep the temperature within 3 degrees of the set temperature. The set temperature is 75. Let's break this down. Let's try to understand this, okay? So Mr. Cabrera sets the temperature at 75. The air conditioner does not keep it exactly at 75, okay? That's pretty much impossible because the temperature is going to change based on how many people are in the room or if it's a really hot day outside or things like that, right? So the air conditioner, what it does is if the temperature goes outside of 3 degrees from 75, then it will kick in. So for example, if the temperature gets too hot, 75, 76, 77, 78, once it hits 3 degrees past the set temperature, it's going to kick in, okay? It also does the opposite. The thermostat does the opposite. If it goes down too low, then it kicks in, okay? So it keeps it within 3 degrees. So we got to figure out what it means by within 3 degrees. So what you got to do is just look at the 75 and say, what is 3 degrees away from 75? Well, on the lower end, 75 minus 3 is 72. So the lowest the air conditioning, temperature could be is 72. That's still within 3 degrees. The highest it could be is 75 plus 3, which is 78. So once again, since the set temperature is 75, but it's within 3 degrees, the lowest it could be is 72. The highest it could be is 78. And there it is. There's your inequality. The temperature represented by x is somewhere in between those values. And just like an and inequality, because it is an and inequality, we're going to put less than or equal symbols. There it is. This is saying that the temperature in the room has to be somewhere between 72 and 78 because Mr. Cabrera set it at 75. So it must be within this range right here. Okay, let's graph it. The graph would start at 72, which is about right there. And it's going to be a closed circle because it could be 72. It's still within 2 degrees. 78 is about right here. And the temperature is somewhere in between that, so I'm going to shade in between those points. And they're both close because it's less than or equal signs. There you go. That's it.